The main thrust of this program is to question the validity of the official record of mankind's exploration of the moon. Sending men to the moon and bringing them back safely is widely held to be the greatest technical achievement of mankind so far. In fact, the greatest achievement of the second millennium. But this story of Project Apollo presents an alternative viewpoint. The material you will see uncovers numerous inconsistencies in the official NASA record of manned missions to the moon. The anomalies presented bring into total question whether, over the period of 3 years from 1969, 12 named Apollo astronauts really did travel through deep space and walk upon the surface of our celestial neighbor, the moon. New evidence throws into serious doubt the authenticity of the Apollo record and suggests that NASA hoaxed the photographs taken on the surface of the moon. This aspect of the lunar photography is dealt with in Part 1. In Part 2, we will be looking at the dangers of space radiation that have to be overcome when journeying to and from the moon. And in Part 3, we examine the evolution of the rockets involved and the problems of getting astronauts and all their equipment out to the moon and back, alive and well. This production is the result of painstaking and extensive research. You will hear the testimony of many people from various disciplines, including those who can be described as whistleblowers. These are individuals who have spoken out or left a legacy of clues. In a 1959 report to the US House of Representatives, rocket engineer Wernher von Braun stated that manned orbit of the moon would not occur before 1969, and that a manned lunar landing would only follow years later. The NASA administrators and their contractors, North American Aviation, were firmly of the opinion that until at least the early 1970s, only unmanned instrumentation would be probing the lunar surface and its environment.
In 1959, I was working with advanced research at Rocketdyne, and they did a study on the statistical probability of landing a man on the moon and returning him, and it was something like 0.0014. This was taking into account the Van Allen radiation belt, solar flares, micrometeorites, all of the numerous hazards that astronauts would encounter and the possibility of failure. So obviously, when I heard that in 1959, I pretty much got the idea that going to the moon was a real risky thing.
Despite these and other expert opinions, 2 years later, President Kennedy officially set America on the road to the moon. Given the fully acknowledged relatively primitive state of 1960s technology, we are going to investigate the dramatic progress and the many claims made by the Apollo space program.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space.
This program will show that real live astronauts were sent on the high-risk journey to the moon, but they were not the now famous named astronauts who in all probability never left Earth orbit. In this way, they avoided exposure to the hazardous and even lethal radiation of deep space by remaining below the zones of radiation that encircle Earth, and of course staying well within the Earth's magnetic field, which contributes to the protection of our planet. Even in our present state of technology at the dawn of this new millennium, potentially lethal radiation awaits all those who venture through the Van Allen radiation belts into deep space, whether they be en route to the moon, to Mars, or beyond. So did Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Ed Mitchell, and their named comrades sacrifice their personal integrity on the altar of NASA's reputation? Did other unnamed astronauts sacrifice their lives? And if so, for what reason? Was it to cover for the fact that in the late 60s it was not possible to guarantee the safe return to Earth of the Apollo astronauts? Such a scenario would answer that inevitable question, why? and to justify the serious anomalies in the official record which this investigation reveals. Dr. Ian Crawford is a research astronomer for the Department of Physics and Astronomy at University College London.
In our history, we've done a lot of things, but we have also done some things which are truly great, like building the pyramids, like building the cathedrals in medieval Europe, and like putting people on the moon in the 1960s. I mean, these were tremendous achievements for their time.
Could it be the case that NASA publicly stated that it was doing things one way, when in fact plans were in place to proceed in a very different manner? Was it realized very early on that apart from the unpredictable radiation hazards and the massive technological challenges, the lunar environment itself, without an atmosphere and certainly no winds, created yet another set of insurmountable problems?
Maybe it'll, that's what it looks like, it's waving in a breeze.
How many roads must a man walk down before you come?